Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Welcome to the Crafter's Corner, the live stream that's all about taking a break.
The cultists of Great Cthulhu often worship him through depraved and orgiastic voodoo rituals, performed as an indescribably grotesque mask of naked human abnormality, braying, bellowing, and writhing in the moonlight.
That's what we should do.
To make time for creativity and crafting. Whether you're a wargamer, game master, RPG player, model maker, cosplayer, costumer, or creative crafter of any kind, you're welcome here.
And I always confuse Monet and Manet. Now, which one married his mistress?
Monet.
Right, and then Manet had syphilis.
They also painted occasionally.
Maybe you have a few hundred, or maybe a few thousand unpainted miniatures laying around your house. Now would be a great time to pick them up, grab a paintbrush, and a few bottles of paint. Let's get those miniatures painted, whether you just need that one perfectly painted miniature for your D&D character, a band of orcs to pit against your PCs, a custom warband for Frostgrave or Mordheim, or even a whole new Warhammer army. Let's get to work on it. And you know what? Now would also be a great time for a glass of your favorite beverage to enjoy while we work.
Captain Kirk, I thought Romulan ale was illegal.
One of the advantages of being 1,000 light years from Federation headquarters.
Or maybe you need some terrain for your table. No problem. Now would be a great time for cutting foam, flocking bases, scratch building something cool, and just painting something awesome. Not only will we have a good time here, but it just might make your next game night that much better.
To do this, we are going to need a greenstone idol of Cthulhu.
Yes, Ben, you may speak.
I can make it. I majored in art for a semester.
That's great, Ben. No special skills are necessary here, as long as we're having fun. That's all that matters. Maybe you've got a model that you want to build. Maybe there's a model of the Starship Enterprise or of a Klingon warbird that's still sitting in its box. Well, now would be a great time to open it up and see what it would take to get it done. Have you poured your drink yet?
What's that? This, my friend, is a pint. It comes in pints?
Oh.
I'm getting one.
What about cosplay? Need some extra time to work on your next great costume? Now is the time to break out the sewing machine, the fabric, the thread, crafting foam, and maybe even some warbler. That all sounds great to me. Let's see what we can create.
Spider.
So grab your paints, brushes, thread, crafting foam, fabric, or whatever it might be that you need to create what you want to have for your next game session or your next convention, or maybe just what you need to have a little bit of fun tonight doing something creative.
I now do what other people only dream. I make art until someone dies. See? I am the world's first fully functioning homicidal artist.
Come on in for a bit of fellowship and camaraderie, because now it's time for the Crafter's Corner. Let's make something great.
My transformation into a deep one has finally begun. Father Dagon be praised.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the Crafter's Corner. I'm Heath, and it is so good to see you here. I'm a little bit late this evening, about 15 minutes late this evening. I completely lost track of time as I was working on other things, but hey, I'm here now. So if you are wanting to do something creative in this evening, hey, this is the time that I give to you. You can join us. We'll be doing a conversation on sex, sexuality, storytelling, and the state of fandom with of the Positive Fandom channel. She is an ally here in our efforts to create a positive and constructive narrative around, well, geekdom, fandom, all of that, in a world that can be very negative. She's one of our allies, and so I was very pleased to have her on the channel and to discuss things with her. Tomocrat is here, says, I need to look into the Cultists. I hope you do. If you are here on the channel and you have not watched the Cultists is the comedy web show that I created, produced, and co-wrote about Lovecraftian cultists who are just trying to worship Cthulhu in a world full of people who don't understand. So all of the cultists, season 1 and season 2, both season 1 and season 2 are only about an hour long, are here on the channel. And I would really hope that you would watch them. And there are a lot of people who spend a lot of time creating the cultists. So W3 Techie is here. And Willie the Monkey King's music says, you got the lovely on. I did. She is on. I want to talk to her again. You know, I sometimes hop on her channel into the comments and things like that. And you see her occasionally popping into this channel as well. So yes, she is definitely here. The lovely will be here in just a moment. Hey, if you were not here this morning, I want to show you something that a preview of something that I created today that I was showing to people this morning. Because, as you know, I've been trying to figure out a bunch of different technology and so forth, but how we're going to be able to create different worlds here on the channel, which actually means I've created several different channels. One of which I just started is the Black Cipher YouTube channel. Hang on, let me grab here's the link right here. Here's the Black Cipher YouTube channel. I mean, please click over there and subscribe if you like, because one of the things I think that would be interesting is I'm doing a variety of different worlds, and I'm putting each one of them on their own YouTube channel. So I'm really curious to see which ones are the most popular kinds of worlds and the kinds of things that can be put out. So this is the Black Cipher. So I created a YouTube channel specifically for it here on the Black Cipher. And earlier today, maybe about 12:30 today, my time, I posted the Black Cipher introduction, which explains what the Black Cipher is, specifically also about aliens who have contacted the Vatican Observatory and ended up with some dead astronomers. So let me play this for you. I was very pleased at the reaction that it got today on the Morning Grind. Because, you know, one of the purposes of the things that I've been doing is I've been trying to learn different filmmaking techniques, which is one of the reasons why I did the Cultists anyway. To learn different filmmaking techniques in order to make the necessary pitch materials, like a teaser trailer that goes with my pitch materials in order to pitch TV shows or film in Hollywood. And actually, I think using the techniques that I have used to create the Black Cipher introduction could be one of them. So I'm going to show this to you right now. I'll probably put it full screen. But here, I want to know what you think about this. This is a sci-fi world of paranormal horror. I don't know. Do you like this? It was well received this morning, but I want to know what you have to say tonight. So here is the Black Cipher on its own YouTube channel. I just put in the comments. Here we go.
Cipher is a fabled Rosetta Stone-like object which allows the translation of indescribably ancient texts written in alien languages, some of which date to before the Younger Dryas catastrophe, which ended the advanced civilizations on Earth and plunged the planet into the last ice age. Over the centuries, the Black Cipher has been rumored to have been in the possession of many infamous sorcerers and occult figures. Recently, the Vatican Astronomical Observatory intercepted a transmission believed to be of extraterrestrial origin. The astronomers who heard it went insane. The sole call for help from the receiving station was filled with horrifying and inhuman sound. When the Vatican gendarmes arrived, they found the astronomers were dead, having been hung with arcane runes carved into their flesh. After Vatican demonologists and exorcists cleansed the observatory, a Jesuit priest and professor of metaphysics applied the Black Cipher in the Vatican archives to the recording of the transmission. It successfully decoded the transmission, unlocking dread secrets of the universe sent to us from other intelligences. It revealed bleak truths of the paranormal and supernatural being. Truly, it seems the nature of humanity is darker and stranger than any have imagined. Though the Vatican tried to suppress the observatory massacre and their contact with extraterrestrial beings, the information has leaked from an unknown source. Now, the revelatory message of the Vatican transmission is being compiled into an encyclopedic text which is being released here on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel for releases of shorts and longer form videos as we delve into the horrifying truth revealed by the Black Cipher.
Oh, Tommycrat says, got an Event Horizon vibe. That was a creepy movie. Interesting, interesting. So if you're interested, I think one of the things that we can do here on this channel, we've got the Black Cipher. We're going to have Unspeakable Cults coming soon. As you know, we've been working on the Tales of Rabavania every Wednesday for the last few weeks, several weeks. And then we're also going to have Theophany, which tells the story of the fall of Satan. But the issue is I have no idea what people want to watch on YouTube. I have absolutely no idea. Do people want to watch something like sci-fi paranormal horror? Well, that would be the Black Cipher. Do they want to watch fantasy kinds of horror? That would be the Unspeakable Cults. Do they want to watch something about Lucifer and the fall of Satan and something demoniacal? Well, that would be Theophany. Do they want to watch a more family-friendly story about medieval rabbits in Rabavania? I have no idea what they want to watch. So I think the thing to do is just to try to make videos on all four of those channels. Every one of those will have their own channels. And then on the Morning Grind and also on videos here on the Heath's Geekverse channel, we can just see what of those gets the most response. Like, what is it that gets the most subscriptions? What of it gets the most views? I guess that will tell me what actually I need to spend my time doing, because I mean, I can think of all kinds of things to do for all of those worlds. But that's the thing, like, hey, I got this, one great world. Well, great. If you got one great world, do people on YouTube like that? Well, I mean, who knows? I don't know. But if you say I got like multiple worlds, well, maybe one of those will be something people like on YouTube. So we will see. So Willie the Monkey King's Music says, how are you going to make the show? I'm intrigued with how you'll do it. Well, now I've been completely embracing AI technology, because with like the Cultists, as we were talking about earlier, when I was doing the Cultists, I mean, the Cultist was an extremely expensive show that we did 2 seasons of that took a lot of time to make. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of money to make. There was a lot of pre-production because we had to sew all of the costumes together. We had to create all of the props. I was doing that in the warehouse, in the workshop, making all of the props. We had to coordinate all the schedules. I had to hire all the actors. We had to cast all of the actors and then hire all the actors and schedule all of the actors. It takes about 2 weeks to shoot a season of The Cultist for 1 hour worth of film, and then it takes several weeks after that in order to start going through post-production and editing and all of that. And I mean, that's an extremely expensive process. And of course, I was learning. We talked about that because I was learning all of that, because what I want to do is I want to be able to create the pitch material for the shows that I want to make for Hollywood, and for the TV shows or films that I want to make to Hollywood in order to be able to pitch that. So I was like, well, I'm not anywhere near the quality that I need to be in order to be able to make pitch-worthy material. So I've got to practice with the Cultists. So, we practiced with that. That's been a lot. I mean, that was a lot. That was a big deal to shoot both of those. It took 2 weeks to do season 1. For a season, it took 2 weeks, basically 14 days worth of shooting in order to do that. But now AI technology is just like increasingly, like, it's just screaming, right? I mean, AI technology is just going through 2D art like a scythe. It's about to go through all 3D animation like a scythe, right? So I'm working on all of that. Well, like, how would I make them? Well, right now it's looking like I need to master AI technology, because it's AI technology that's going to make these things. Like, for instance, it doesn't seem like the Tales of Rabavania, which is going to be an animated film, it seems extremely unlikely, like looking at where we are with AI technology right now, that Rabavania would be animated. Like, even if I pitched it to Hollywood, that Hollywood would be making it in a traditional animated way. I mean, how much longer are we going to be doing traditional animation? I mean, already AI technology has basically eliminated most 2D art jobs, right? Not all by any stretch of the imagination, but much of the 2D art jobs have already been eliminated by AI. How many months are we away from them eliminating 3D animation jobs? I mean, I don't think we're talking about multiple years from eliminating that. We're probably talking about months, right? So how am I going to make it? I mean, I think it's by mastering AI technology. I think absolutely. Tomocrat says, I like the Black Cipher, though I think Rabavania might get a bigger pull, though pushing the product always helps. Well, we'll just see. We'll just see. You know, that was actually the reverse opinion that people had this morning. They were like, oh, well, the Black Cipher and Theophany will do much better on YouTube than Rabavania will. So some people have thought some worlds, some people have thought the others. I have no idea. I have no idea. That's why I just figure, well, we'll have to do multiple worlds, and then we'll do some intense data analysis on what YouTube shows, right? I mean, you know, I wrote an article several years ago about in the future, we will only create for the machines. And of course, right now, we are definitely already there. I mean, if you are trying to create something now, do you create that for another human being? Well, of course not. You don't want to create for another human being because the gatekeeper between you and another human being is a machine. It's an algorithm, right? So when you, like, for instance, when you post something to YouTube, the YouTube algorithm decides in about 2 hours whether or not it's something that it wants to show to other human beings. So you have to create things that machines like. You want to create things that a machine likes. And if a machine likes it, the machine will distribute that further to other humans, right? So I have no idea. So first we have to say, what is it that machines will really, really like so that they will recommend it to human beings? And I have no idea. I have no idea. So because I have no idea, what a YouTube algorithm wants to show to other human beings, I have no idea. The only way I can figure out how to solve that problem is to create a variety of different things and then do data analytics based on what YouTube shows in order to create more of that. So I have to specifically tailor what I am making to what a computer algorithm wants to show to other human beings, right? It's kind of weird, right? So I don't know, but you can. I'm going to share all of this process here on Heath's Geekverse, on the Morning Grind and other places, just to see. I mean, it's an interesting experiment, right? We have more technology than ever to create amazing things. That's why I don't really go in for, you don't see me doing a lot of like, hey, let me review the latest trailer from Marvel or the latest Star Wars trailer or the latest whatever that just came out. A lot of people do that quite a bit, but I don't do that because I'm like, man, if the more time I spend like watching the latest Marvel thing and then spending several hours or whatever creating a YouTube video and then editing, is less time that I'm creating the kinds of things that I want to create. So this is a weird kind of channel because it's based on creativity. It's based on creating the kinds of things that we want, that I want to exist in the world. So we'll just see how it goes. Nico says, this AI is not there yet. It can only help you so much. And even then, you'll still need animators to fix many mistakes from the AI. Well, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's great. That's great. Let's say that if you need, 30, if in order to create the show from scratch, let's say you needed $30 million to animate it. If you still have to show it to some people to get them to fix some things, but the AI can drop the cost of animation from, say, $30 million to $2,000, I'll still take it. I mean, that's fine. There will still be some animators who might still need to look at it. For now, of course. Now, I mean, you're talking about animators that might need to look at it today, but I'm not really thinking about today, of course. Because, like, how long would it be before the Tales of Rabavania movie is actually animated? Let's say 5 years. So I'm looking at the cutting edge of AI today. And if I'm looking at what AI can do today, and you're like, well, today it can't do everything. There are still some animators who would have to look at it. Well, okay, that's fine. But, I mean, how many? It's going to be about 10,000 times more powerful in about 5 years? Probably. So if you're looking at today, looking at something, and you're looking at AI animated capability, but you're like, I'm not going to do my project for 5 years. Well, you know, probably about 10,000 times more powerful. That would be my guess. I mean, a rough guess. Would that be what you guys would guess? If you're trying to think about the power of AI animation 5 years from now, would it be probably 1,000 times easily? 5,000 times, 10,000 times? I guess I'm getting about 10,000 times. So, you know, we're talking about the power of animation over the next 5 years. It's probably going to be dramatic. It's probably going to be dramatic. So are you going to make Black Cipher a show? Well, I don't know what's going to happen with Black Cipher. I don't know what's going to happen with Black Cipher because I have the pitches that have been going on for Theophany and for Tales of Rabavania. Because in order to make the pitch, you need 2 and maybe 3 things. So that's when I've been talking with people out in Hollywood. And they're like, well, you need 2 and you need possibly 3 things. The 2 things that you need are a complete script, which is why I've been working on the Tales of Rabavania script. So I have the script has to be completely finished. You know, that the script has to be completely finished. And then you have to have the pitch deck, right? You have to have the pitch deck, which is basically your 9 to 12 slide PowerPoint presentation about your pitch, right? So I've been commissioning the pitch decks for that. So my job as the writer is to write the scripts, but then I'll have the pitch decks, and I've been commissioning those for from professional, graphic designers. And then the third thing that you might need to have, that's good to have, is the sizzle reel, like a 30-second teaser trailer. And like I said, that was the reason that I had been working on the cultists and all of that, was like, because I've got to be able to produce a really high quality teaser trailer to pitch my shows. And of course, I knew that if I just said, hey, the first thing I'm going to do is the teaser trailers to my show, it would be no good, right? It'd be no good because I don't have any experience making, cinematic quality teaser trailers, none whatsoever. So that's why we did the Cultist. Actually, that's why we did Dinner and a Board Game, that whole that whole show, web show. We did Dinner and a Board Game. That was our first attempt at doing a show, and that was unscripted. Then we did the Cultist season 1, which was scripted. Then we shot another trailer for Dinner and a Board Game. That was season 2. And then we did another the Cultist season 2 trailer. But now it's like, oh my God, it may not be worth learning how to do physical shows anymore, because is anybody going to be shooting physical shows like in 5 years? Like, I don't know. To me, it becomes a very serious question. So now, okay, go all in on AI and try to get this done. Tomocrat says, is Tales of Rabavania going to be a movie or a series? Well, why can't it be a series of movies? So right now I'm thinking that it would be a movie series. I'm going to be writing the novels, but right now the recommendation was write the beat sheet first. Then once the beat sheet is approved, then then completely write the movie script. And then after the movie script is done, go and write the novel. So you built a name for yourself first, and then you pitch what you really want done. Well, I haven't built a name for myself. My idea was, I'm hoping, it would be nice if people were interested in kind of the process of what I'm doing, but realistically, people are often not interested in the process. That people, once you've done what you're trying to do, then people will look back on what you did, right? But although people, I've spoken to other people on this exact same subject on Table Talk. You've probably seen other people on this channel talk about that, because I've talked to people about what does it take to, for instance, publish a novel, or what does it take to, let's talk about novel publishing. Like, what do you do to publish a novel? If you want traditional, there are 2 ways to publish a novel, for instance. Do you want to go a traditional publishing route and get a publisher to publish it, or do you want to self-publish it? Well, if you want to get a traditional publishing deal, what does the agent want to see? The agent wants to see that you have a huge social media following, because then if they take your book, then you will just sell the book to your large social media following. So if you want a traditional publishing deal, as we've talked to people on this channel before, that you need a very large social media following, because that's what the agent is going to be looking for. The agents want to know that you have large social media followings already, because that's who you're going to sell your product to. Okay, well, if you don't have so if you want to go the other way, if you don't want to do a traditional publishing route, if you want to self-publish, well, what do you need if you're going to self-publish? Well, you're going to need a large social media following, because when you self-publish your book on Amazon or something, who's going to buy the book? Well, the people who are following you on social media. So, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. It seems like, that just seems like the way that it is. And I've been told by some people that, oh, you have to get a traditional publishing deal, because nobody, for instance, in Hollywood, if you want to do a movie, nobody cares if you self-published it. And I've been told, yes, I've been told by people out in Hollywood, yes, traditional publishing is dying. Traditional publishers are dying. That is a dying industry that is going away. But it is what people in Hollywood look at, because they don't actually look at the independent stuff. They do look at the traditional stuff. So I've been told that specifically, that traditional publishing is dying. But if you want to get noticed by Hollywood, you need to have a traditional publisher. So I don't know what to do about that. I have no idea what to do about that. I have no idea what to do about that. I don't think that it's really so much about building a name for myself first and then pitching what I want to have done. That's not really what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that I don't know what people actually want. I have no idea. This is a difference in philosophy that I had with my business partner. My business partner was David LaRocca when I co-founded Infinite Black. And this is a very important difference in business philosophy. When you're trying to create something, David was very much about focus. He was very much about focus. He said, we need to pick one thing and we need to focus on that, because by focusing on one thing, we're going to be able to do that extremely well. Right? So that's what his opinion was. And so my opinion was counter to that. My opinion was, I only want to focus on something if I know that people like it. Right? And I have no idea what people like. Like, for instance, I got these 4 ideas. I got the sci-fi paranormal idea. That's the Black Cipher. I got a traditional kind of fantasy Cthulhu mythos story. That's Unspeakable Cults. I've got the story of the fall of Satan, which is Theophany. And I have the family story of the Tales of Rabivania. Now, I got 4 of those. So what do? Well, according to, for instance, David's philosophy, you would pick one of those and you would focus on that with the exclusion of everything else. Okay, but what happens if you happen to pick the one that people don't like? I mean, that's a major concern, right? I mean, that's a major concern, because you can absolutely destroy yourself if you pick the one that you don't like, so that people don't like. So my philosophy is, rather than just pick one and focusing, I got to publish stuff for all 4 of them and then see what people respond to and what people like best, and then reinforce success. Once you find success, reinforce success. Now, when I've been talking to other business people tend to like that model, saying, I don't have no idea what's going to work, rather than taking, like, if you're looking for an investor, I'm going to take all of your money and I'm going to plunge it into this. I have no idea whether people like it or not, but I'm going to focus on exclusively this. It seems like business people, like if you're looking for investors, if you tell them, I have no idea what people like, I got 5 different ideas, I'm going to run a test of 5 different ideas, and I'm going to run through several different stages of tests. And then once I find success, that's something that people like, I'm going to reinforce that success. It seems like business people like that kind of approach. Doesn't mean it's the right approach, but it seems like that. Hey, James. Well, I was a bit late tonight. I started and we're still sitting here talking. Man, we're still been talking for 30 minutes. I started at about 7:45 tonight. About 15 minutes late tonight. Nico says, I hear publishers want you to arrive with a social media following. It's like, what are publishers for then? Well, I mean, it's a great question. It's a great question. And that's why I think that one of the reasons why I think traditional publishers are dying, right? Because I mean, I've got some friends who had traditional publishers, and some of them were even were even willing to pay for them to go on book tours and things like that. And that's great, if a public, but in today's world, do publishers pay for you to go on book tours? Not really. Right. James Bacon says catering to an audience is the best angle to hit it from. So anyway, so that's what's going on. That's what I've been thinking. So you're getting kind of a behind the scenes look. I have all of these ideas for all these different worlds. What do people like? What does the YouTube algorithm like? I have no idea. I have no idea. But you're here on Heath's Geekverse, so you will get to see all of that kind of as an experiment. Let me go over to, let's see, the camera. I need to go to our traditional look. Here we go for Crafter's Corner, because I have got some miniatures over here for Mage in the Mirror. This is the Mage in the Mirror quest pack. I still have tons of miniatures for this. The Mage in the Mirror Hero Quest pack. Well, this is actually, these are all the miniatures that I still have to paint. And I'm still trying to paint these because I'm really interested in starting to shoot Dinner and a Board Game again, because I want to do some solo hero quests. But I got to finish these because these guys are on my desk. They have still got to get painted. That way I can get all the paints off my desk. After this, I'm thinking about moving a painting station to my bar, but we will see. But I want to get these painted so that we can start doing a Dinner and a Board Game TV show. So I'm going to be sitting here and painting while we listen to the discussion with of the Positive Fandom channel. One of the things that she talks about a lot is sex and sexuality. She really appreciates sexuality and storytelling, like as a vehicle for storytelling. So we talk about that. We also talk about, in general, the state of fandom. Because, like I said, I found it to be kind of negative. And she does run the Positive Fandom channel. And so, positive, constructive kinds of things, that's what I kind of like to do here on this channel. So if you're here and you're watching, well, probably you're kind of constructive oriented. So we talk about that a lot, or talked about that quite a bit. So we're going to be we're going to be listening to that conversation. We can talk about it. Please put your comments down in the comment section. We'll talk about that. I will respond. I'm going to try to get some miniatures done. I might even call this throne done right here. I've got the blue. I just painted it brown because it's like carven wood. I guess you could do more to it, but actually, come to think of it, these are just supposed to be tabletop quality miniatures. The blue cushion here with the carven wood throne, that actually looks pretty good. So I might just say that one's done. But I still got to work on these doors, and then I still got to work on all of these, especially elf miniatures. So I don't know. That's what I'm going to be doing while we do this. Let's see. John M. says they want you to establish because you're more of a sure thing, as they usually lose money on each book they support. You're less of a money sink with an audience already established. Yeah, that's part of it. That's part of it. James Bacon says, yes, it's not an easy name to say. I can't roll R's to, well, I've been practicing because I can be really bad at it. So that's why you have to have a moist mouth because it also seems like I could roll it correctly when I was like around the house trying to practice. But then when it came time to saying it on stream, I would screw it up. So I've been practicing in order to be able to say it. So maybe. That sort of makes sense, John. But again, makes me wonder what the client needs them for. That's what people are always asking. If you have the large following who really want to have your book, do you need the publisher? Unless, like I said, I've been told that no one in Hollywood cares about an independent published book. That they're just not looking at it. They only look at the traditionally published stuff. So that could be wrong. That could be not what they need to be doing. But if that is what they look at and you're trying to get their attention, then you have to be traditionally published. YouTube is the second largest search engine after Google and owned by Google. Yes. But still, I mean, everything is algorithmic. I mean, for that to matter, like for instance, for that to matter, W3 Techie, YouTube is the largest search engine after Google, and it's owned by Google. But for instance, who is searching for the Black Cipher right now? That would be great. Having a fantastic search engine would be great if people are searching for the Black Cipher. But do you know who's searching for the Black Cipher right now? Zero. No one. No one is searching for the Black Cipher because no one even knows the Black Cipher exists because I just created it. So YouTube might be a great search engine, but if no one is searching for you, that doesn't matter. Now, that's why one of the reasons I've been experimenting with these shorts, because YouTube sent me an email that said, hey, we're prioritizing shorts. Like, oh, okay, we're prioritizing shorts. So for instance, when I posted a short about the Black Cipher yesterday, I got 1,600 views in about an hour. So about an hour later, that short had 1,600 views. I posted that introductory video that I showed at the beginning of this video to the Black Cipher YouTube channel, and it's gotten about 6 views. So that shows you that YouTube told me, hey, we're pushing shorts. We want you to make shorts. You know, so if I make a short about the Black Cipher, I got with the same number of subscribers on that channel, which is like 429 right now. If I make a short, well, you could get 1,600 views in an hour. If you make a traditional YouTube video, you'll get 6. And I guarantee you that traditional YouTube video took a lot more time to make than that short. So I'm not so worried. So there's the search engine part of it is one of it, but then there's also what is it that YouTube is showing algorithmically. And that comes back to what I was talking about, that you have to make things for machines. Because if you post something, the Google algorithms are going to analyze it and determine whether or not that's something that should be passed along to another human being, right? So if you don't get past, I mean, sure, I guess if human beings are deliberately trying to search for it, then maybe if you have a great search engine, then they will find it, maybe. But if they're not searching for it, you have to make sure that what you created is approved by an algorithm. Publishers have distribution channels that solo first-time authors wouldn't have access to. Yes, distribution is important. Distribution is definitely important. Although potentially in a digital world, increasingly less so. Potentially. Willie the Monkey King music, King's music. John M says, studied marketing for self-published novels. You need that publishing house. For self-published novels, you need that publishing house for clout, and then you get a better agent with clout, and that means movie deals, etc. Exactly. That's what I was told by the people out in Hollywood, that, well, if you self-publish, it doesn't matter how many copies you sold of that, because the clout that they see about that is not something that they care about. They don't even say, they only see that, oh, this was published by another major house. That's what they care about. Yeah, that's what I was told. Yes, that's the key here. Andy Weir and The Martian was a rare exception when he had built a following, and Holly Weird came to him, as did the Five Sisters. I'll have to look into that. I don't know anything about that. W3 Techie says it would probably be easier to be your own publisher and then have a trademark and an entity than it would be to get on with a publisher. Well, maybe. I mean, I've done my own publishing before. I mean, I've run a publishing company for years. For board games. I've run board game publishing companies. I've never run a book publishing company. But, you know, I know what it takes to run a board game publishing company. Maybe I end up having to run a book publishing company too. Yeah, and Tommy Kratz says the YouTube algorithm is so confusing. Yeah, you have no idea by design. That's why I don't recommend it, because in order to actually run a viable company and be a viable business, you have to understand like something like how you're getting an audience, like how people are seeing your stuff. But YouTube's algorithm is deliberately opaque, as are many other algorithms. So you don't understand really why something is getting views or why the algorithm has decided to pick it up. And that's very, very difficult to run a business by. Very, very difficult. You can't do that. That's why, actually, when Paul Chatto and I were talking about that, that's one of the reasons, one of several reasons, that something like YouTube is not a viable business platform because because you just do not understand what it wants from you. You just don't understand because it's not telling you by design. All right, man, I got to paint some miniatures because I want to be able to do some other shows. But I'm excited, as you can see. I love talking about these kinds of things. So let's go over here. See, I need to go forward a little bit for the conversation with back a little bit. All right. YouTube, just come by my channel, Heath Robinson, and be sure to subscribe. Oh, I'm supposed to. That may have blown you out. I am supposed to have on my earphones. Oh, here they are. Supposed to have on earphones. That way I can listen to the show while you guys do as well. Click watch now. There we go. There we go. All right, let's do some painting here. Hopefully you got something. Oh, hey, and by the way, you know, if you've been painting, if you want to talk about what you are working on, you know, you can also post about your projects that we've been doing here during the Crafters Corner on the Crafters Corner channel on the Discord server. But then there's also, if you're specifically painting miniatures, there's a miniature channel where you can post miniatures. So if you're working on something that's not miniatures or just whatever it is, post the Crafters Corner. But then also, if you do have miniatures, hey, feel free to post. I would love to see the kinds of stuff that you're working on. There's a link to the Discord server right there. I just put it in the comments. All right, let's go. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Somebody's saying you can't hear the audio. Hang on just 1 second. Hang on. I'm sorry. Maybe that is a problem on my end. Thank you for saying that. Hang on. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now? Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm going to start this over right here. Let's see. Tell me if you can fix this now. Words and graphics that help track the turns and allow everyone to follow the game's action. We'll play games like Zombicide, Black Plague, Descent, Journeys in the Dark, Small World, Unearthed, and Terraforming Mars. We'll even be joined by special guests such as Lou Andrews, J.F. Lewis, and cosmic horror artist David LaRocca. The show is free to watch on YouTube. Just come by my channel, Heath Robinson, and be sure to subscribe. Click watch now to start the first episode and join us for fun-filled evenings. You can hear me now? Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you for letting me know. Sorry about that. You're right, because I started without my setup here. W3 Techie says one thing you can know about the YouTube algorithm, and the same with Google, is by the ads you see. If you are talking about something trending or profitable, they will bump you. Yeah, that's I talk about that a lot with people. That's why, like when I was talking with Chuck Bush, for instance, we were talking about if you want to do stuff on YouTube, do you want to talk about people's independent movies or do you want to talk about Star Wars? Oh, you should definitely talk about Star Wars, because and people have posted videos about like it pushing material about Star Wars. So clearly, like if you want views on YouTube, do you want to talk about some independent show or some independent film, or do you want to talk about Star Wars? Oh, you should definitely make your channel about talking about Star Wars, for instance, because yeah, that's something that's popular, and so YouTube will push you. Willie the Monkey King's Music says, is it worth trying to publish a comic to tell the story to try to get an animated show off the ground, or is it worth making an animated short show by myself to get the notoriety? Is it worth trying to publish a comic to tell the story to try to get an animated show off the ground, or is it worth making an animated short story to get the notoriety? I have no idea. Really. I have no idea. My general philosophy has been that, well, I'm gonna have to do everything myself. So if you really want the animated show, then I suppose it would be worth trying to practice doing the animated show. But on the other hand, I mean, if you've got, I guess it depends on who you know. If you've got a comic that some agent sees that says, "Hey, this is something that I can," but I think from what I've heard, it would have to be a traditionally published comic. Because I was wondering, like, didn't Eric July? I actually don't know much about Eric July, but he was the one who did the fantastically successful independent comic, and I was wondering, is that going to be noticed by Hollywood? But it seemed like the people who I asked were like, no one in Hollywood is going to care that Eric July self-published this extremely successful comic book, because they don't look at things like that, which is sad, but it may be the truth. W3 Techie says, I know this because I see ads in my inbox that come from videos that I watched on YouTube and videos the YouTube from which I bought. All right. I think we got the audio fixed now. Hey, everybody. Eric is awesome. Yeah, I don't know much about him. I've seen him here and there, but I have not been following greatly. I saw when everybody was talking about his comic books just absolutely erupting. All right. Well, see, Nico says a comic will never help you publish an animation. Yeah, well, I don't know. I spoke with, we need to get going with our discussion with RM, but I had a rather extended discussion with someone. Now, this wasn't animation. It was going to be a live action movie, but who was really trying to put together films. He really wanted to put together films. And so I was like, all right, he's having some success here. I really need to talk with him. So we sat down and we had lunch, and I was really trying to pick his brain, because it seemed like of all of the people who I personally know, is that true? At least of the top 2 or 3 people who I personally know, he had gotten the closest to securing a movie deal. He had gotten very close to securing a movie deal, and he had done it through comics. He had done it through doing a comic that was going to land. Now, not animation. So I guess this is not exactly what you're talking about here, Nico, because he had gone from comics to live action. And it was very close to landing that deal, but it didn't go through because he was trying to get, I don't know what story it was, but he wanted The Rock in a movie. And so he was specifically designing and writing the comic book specifically for The Rock, for a character that The Rock would want to play, and exactly the kind of character that would be great for The Rock, and like engineering this comic book to become a movie for The Rock, right? And so he was talking with the Rock's agent and all of that, and it was going well. And the comic books had already been drawn, like the comic books had been written, they had even been drawn, and all of the art was of the main character looking like the Rock because it was intended for the Rock to play. And even I think the Rock, I think he was telling me that the Rock has certain tattoos or something. And so the character even had the Rock's tattoos in the comic book because they were like, this comic book is going to come out. This is going to launch the show. It's got the Rock in the comic book, and now it's going to have the Rock in the movie. And so he had gotten that close to getting the movie deal, but then the Rock changed agents. He decided that he didn't like his agent, and he fired his agent. And so it was the fired agent that was the one who was negotiating the deal. And so when the Rock fired that agent, well, it's not like that project went to the new agent. That was just dead immediately as soon as the agent called and said, well, I'm no longer representing the Rock. Sorry about that. And then that completely nixed that. And in fact, they had to do emergency recoloring and readjusting of the comic book because, like I said, it had the Rock's likeness in the comic book and even his tattoos. And so, like, just right before the comic book was supposed to go to print, they had to change that in order to remove the tattoos and change something of the likeness because the Rock was no longer on the project. So he got closer than anybody I personally know to landing a movie like that. But, you know, hey, the Rock fired his agent, and that's why it didn't happen. My palette looks clean. Man, I got to clean my palette. W3 Techie says, instead of pushing a trend, you could appeal to a niche, but that means limiting yourself to a niche to go by the YouTube algorithm. Well, niche is not bad. I don't think niche is bad. As long as you're able to connect with that niche, I don't think a niche is bad. Script, storyboard, animate shouldn't be too hard if you had a bunch of money, but I think the amount of money that's going to take is going to drop. I think it's going to drop like a rock. I think it's about to drop like a rock. Comics are the most extreme niche, super small. James Bacon says, do what you're passionate about. Don't try to begin somewhere that you intend to parlay into a separate medium. You like film, buy a camera. GoPros are cheap. You like novels, write. Games, program. That's video games, I should say. Yeah, I mean, there's something to, there's something to that. I could argue against that, James. I could argue against that. But I think the argument for that is definitely that everything is hard. Everything is hard. I have never spoken to anyone in any medium who said that something was easy. Never. Whether it's novel writing or comic books or film or TV or board games or role-playing games or video games or whatever it is. I have never spoken to anyone in any of that who said, oh yeah, this is the really easy one. This one's really easy. Never have I ever spoken to somebody who says that. So I think everything is hard. Everything is hard. And everything is oversaturated. So given that, do the one you want to do. Because you can spend a lot of time doing the ones you don't want to do. So do the one you do want to do. That would be my opinion there. All right, let's see. Let's go on here. Now that we've got audio going. And now it's time for Table Talk, where we'll be talking about the creative and business side of making things in the tabletop and fantasy genre. Let's get to it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to what is the 13th episode of this Table Talk show. Thank you very much for being here. Tonight, I have with us a very special guest. This is Mmmm. You might know her from YouTube, the Positive Fandom channel, and she has also joined us already on this channel as part of General Geekdom, which is the roundtable show where we talked about the representation of women and feminine qualities in film and TV and other genres. But here she is today to talk to us about the philosophy of Positive Fandom and what is going on basically in geek culture and our appreciation of TV, film, and other media as well. Welcome. Hello.
Hello, Heath. How are you today?
Excellent. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me back on the channel.
Thank you so much for being here. It is a uh-oh. Here you are. Okay. It is a delight to have you. Do you want to introduce yourself and let everybody know what you do and well, who you are and what you do?
Well, sure, Heath. My name is Mmmm, and I do have my own YouTube channel called Positive Fandom. And the basis behind Positive Fandom is that I wanted to talk and focus about all of the fun things that I love in science fiction, fantasy, sci-fi, and horror. And it would also, of course, include a focus on sex and sexuality in all of those genres. What I had noticed that, especially at a time where it seemed that the world was getting a little dimmer, perhaps not as things were not seeming as hopeful, I wanted to focus on the things in the genres that gave us hope. So the idea is that, yes, we'll still criticize, but we're going to remember all those fun things that we like to talk about. And I started a show called Sunday Brunch, where I encourage people to come by, and we parlay about things in the fandom, keep it positive. And then if you do have a concern, just let it out, and we listen to what you have to say. But it's all to support people in this great community that we have, Heath, of incredible talent as well. So that means that if you are another creator like yourself, or are going to come out with a book or anything interesting and fun that you want to share with the community, we encourage people to come on to that show, and we will promote your things there. And of course, meeting everybody in the community was the other reason why I started that channel, Heath, just because I feel like it's such a special time to be able to have connections with people in a way we never had even 20 years ago. So this is a really great time, and I wanted to be a part of it. And in order to do that, I needed to have a channel and a voice. And I also should mention that I have a mentor. His name is Robert Meyer Burnett, and he has a YouTube channel called the Post Geek Singularity. I do stream with Robert. And I also have a show on his channel called Ladies of the PGS, which I just started. So that's what I wanted to say. And one other show I do have is another show called Toxic Male Appreciation,
which is a great name.
Thank you so much. Essentially, the show is about embracing masculinity and everything masculine. And my co-host Lorena Creel, who you know very well, Heath, we talk about all the great things we love about men, essentially. And so it's a show where we celebrate men. And I think it's a very unique show in that regard. But certainly, I didn't like the vilification that I'd been seeing in recent years. So I did want to just throw out some positivity to all the men out there. We appreciate you and the community as well. So that's what I do.
All right. Wonderful. I hope everybody checks those out and does join the Sunday Brunch. I try to get there on Sunday Brunch, but I also typically have to watch it in rerun after that because for some reason I can't get. I'm not ready at Sunday Brunch times. I got to fix that. But coming up. All right. So I think there are a lot of things for us to talk about. I've got some notes of a whole bunch of different subjects to talk about within. James Bacon says it's all hard, all of it. Yes, I failed a lot of it, but I'm passionate about my interests, and so I'm going to keep going until I succeed. Yeah, that's the plus side of the passion side of things, right? That, well, at least maybe you will keep going. Although the flip side that we could talk about passion is that I bet people get very passionate about what works. Let's say if you, this is just like as a hypothetical here. What if you took a stab at, novel writing, YouTube video making, comic book writing, and, well, let's just say those three. Comic book writing, YouTube video making, and novel writing. And you were trying to make one of the, but then one of those all of a sudden hit really big and made you several $1 million. I bet you would get passionate about the one that was successful really fast. Right. So it might be that do the one that you're passionate about, but it could be that if you try you know, several different things, and then one of them happens to hit and makes you mega money, I bet all of a sudden you're going to be passionate about doing it. Hey, Retro Nerd Girl. Welcome, Retro Nerd Girl. It is so good to see you. Welcome. Vision says, no Citadel paint pots. Love them. Overpriced, but love them. Well, you know, I haven't been using them, but I got these. I do have the contour paints. Excuse me, not contour, contrast. I got contrast paint sitting over here. Mainly what I've been using is the Citadel speed paints, but I do have the contrast paints sitting over here that I hadn't used as much. But yeah, no, talk about expensive. Those things are freaking expensive. Zero the Blade says, sorry I'm late. Had skydive tunnel training at 8 Eastern. Well, that sounds freaking fantastic. I want to do skydive tunnel training. Slight Quills says, wow, that's great. A great perspective. I wonder which perspective that was. But I think Sunday brunch is so much fun. Yeah, I try to get there. It's, you know, it's on Sundays now. I've started, you know, I'm shooting the morning grind between 9:30 and 10:30 a.m. Central. And then basically when I get off now, is shooting Sunday brunch. And so I can pop over there and watch. Embracing Masculinity. I know. The fact that she has a show called Toxic Masculinity is just fantastic. So yes, you know, like I said, if you're not following, in fact, I need to grab her channel link, but just because she's also on some other channels as well. But the very fact that she has Toxic Masculinity is really fun. Guys love a good woman who can support them. Yes, it's true. Slight Quill says, well, I think it's a self-conscious perspective. I doubt she supports harmful masculine behavior, but supporting a different kind of masculinity rather than demonizing. Well, yes, she's not supporting harmful behavior. She's not supporting harmful behavior. But definitely, you know, in a world where it seems like it seems like masculinity is often associated with this word adjective, I think it's fun that she just embraces it and then has her show where they talk about men and masculinity and the things they like about that. Oh my God, here she is. Wait a minute, hold on. It's welcome. You can see I've been practicing. So there you go. So here she is. She's here. So yeah, we need to have another conversation soon. We need to do another table talk conversation soon about how things have advanced over the last several months in the fandom and so forth. I do want to put out a link to Positive Fandom so that you've got it. Here it is right here. So if you are looking for the Positive Fandom, Positive Fandom channel, misspelling, it is right there. So please do also subscribe to this channel. All right, so I'm glad to see you here. So we should have another conversation soon. Oh, Arun says I would love to have another. See, I need to go back and grab people and come back and do another cycle here because it's about time. It's about time to do another cycle. We can do even better this time. We can have extended conversations and deeper conversations. I think because I think I'm even. Yeah, when I was doing the first round of Table Talk interviews, I was still really new at this. All right, so let's go. So here you go. So if you got questions about toxic masculinity and its meaning, is in the chat. Let's go. All of that. And so first of all, I think we should talk about the philosophy of positive fandom and what that is and why we need it and what that movement is, because there is certainly a lot of negative fandom.
Yes, there is. You're right, Heath. And it is just an important note to think about the idea of the fact that as we are looking at all the wonderful things we enjoy in our IPs, from books to video games to movies to television programs, even to special events, something like Star Wars Celebration, these Comic Cons or gatherings that we go to, sometimes everything doesn't go as planned, and it may not turn out the way you expect. Something that you may want to purchase after you get that purchase may not be what you expected it. Life is that way. And like, how do we deal with those feelings and emotions? And I feel the best way to deal with it is to get on my channel or someone else's channel and just express, these feelings that you have and share with the community how you feel. There might be others who share your opinion, but sometimes it's not all hearts and flowers. So it is true that while I focus on mainly positive thoughts and feelings, I do acknowledge the fact that sometimes, you may not feel that positive that day. Just go ahead and get it out, and then, move on to your next feeling and just relate to yourself. I've felt that. Now I can move on to more positive things in my life, and I'm all the better for it. So that's why I think it is needed, because there are going to be disappointments in life, and dealing with your emotions is 90% of that experience. But sometimes you need to tell someone about it, don't you? So that's why I like to hear other people's opinions, because sometimes you just need someone to hear what you're saying, and that makes all the difference in your day. So yes, I will talk about very positive things, and I am known for smiling a lot and being cheerful, and I'm a bit of a cheerleader, but I do understand that life isn't all hearts and flowers. We're here to support one another. It's a very special time because we can support one another right on this program. We can support one another. And that, I think, is a very special thing to do, especially since some people can feel detached in the social media era that we're in. Don't feel detached. Come on board. Join us. Listen to what we have to say. Express your feelings in the chat. This is all about reaching out to other people and enjoying the people you're around. Eventually we'll see each other at another convention. Eventually, hopefully we'll see you at a con or at a movie theater event or something. But in the meantime, with our busy days and schedules, this is what we're using, and let's go ahead and embrace it and make it work for all of us.
When I was first thinking about getting more involved in YouTube, one of the things I did was I watched a whole bunch of it. And of course, there's a lot of material out there that is always about what is happening wrong in mass media, popular media in general, week by week or day by day, or sometimes hour by hour, about what is happening. And of course, and I think a lot of that may have started like after with Star Wars, maybe with The Last Jedi specifically, or something like that. And of course, there were a lot of reasons that I'd even agree with, what the people felt like, oh, wait, my God, this is going in the wrong direction. We got to talk about it. So there was a whole bunch of stuff that united a lot of people in, I guess that was the Star Wars fandom, about this is going the wrong direction, what to go in the other direction. But how long can we go with that? How long can we continue that? Because I mean, obviously, I also think that one of the times that I started really watching a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube was when He-Man Revelations was coming out, and I was a big He-Man fan, and I kind of made the decision, because you kind of have to decide when your show's coming out. Are you going to go all in with the leaks and the spoilers and listening to all that, or are you just going to shut it all out, as best you can, and then watch it fresh? And so I decided with He-Man Revelation, I'll just go all in. Just what everybody's saying on YouTube as I'm sitting here working, I'll turn it on. So I got familiar with all of that. And that was it. That was its own enjoyment. But then at some point, because when I watched the show, I was like, okay, a lot of people are going to feel very negative about this. And of course they do. But then, okay, but I can't talk about that for 60 hours.
No, this is a good point. And of course, I had some very interesting reactions to the show, to a point where it was almost comedic for me. Some of the things that I saw, some of the depictions, I was kind of viewing and laughing over how you know, it was portrayed and in different things. And there are some people who love the show, and I'm happy that I'm always happy when someone says they love a show, because a lot of work goes into these shows, and a lot of people depend on the livelihood of being in a production, especially something like He-Man Revelations. But you know, I've also been on a stream with people who were very, very upset about it, and you know, I thought to myself, if I am going to have an upset reaction to this show, how am I going to be upset about it? Well, I don't generally express myself, I guess, using, or at least try not to use something too negative. So oftentimes I'll say, rather than me choosing to use the word hate, which may be true, maybe that is how I feel, I'll say, well, I didn't care for this. And what they could have done is suggest something else. And I started to realize that at some point, someone's going to take that video and do like a mashup of it, you know, and make it into something different. I noticed that they did that recently with the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Someone took the 6 episodes or so and made it into sort of like a movie, and it was a great film.
Oh,
so
really?
I think that, yeah, I always think that my point is this, that there's good in a lot of these shows, and it's kind of an unrealistic expectation to like everything in every show. But sometimes you do. Sometimes you find something where you just absolutely love everything. And it's a very lucky moment. It's a very lucky moment in your life. But there are going to be things that you're not going to care for and may not live up to your expectations. So, you know, I understand how the reactions of others are this way, and they need to get those feelings out. Honestly, it's healthy for them to get those feelings out. Now, I have to, you know, wonder to myself too, I also don't like to see my friends upset. So that was the other flip side. You know, you want them to express their emotions, but then they're very, very upset. And, you know, I said, all right, let's just be encouraging. Okay, maybe the next thing that comes out is going to be better. Maybe, you know, this was disappointing for you, but there's much more in store. And not only that, I don't know about you, Heath, but I haven't watched every single science fiction, fantasy, and horror thing that I want to see, nor have I read every book, nor have I played every game, nor have I, you know, seen every television show of those genres that I love. So there's plenty more to enjoy outside of things that do disappoint. So sometimes I'll focus some of my energy on looking at things that I already know I love, or trying to discover stuff that people have recommended to me that I haven't had time to look at. So that's what I do. Now, another thing that I like to focus on, or at least that helps me to keep things positive, is only to go ahead and think to myself, if I could fix this the way that I would like to see it, what would the recommendation be? So, like, for example, in one of those Star Wars films where people are riding on horses in space, I would say, okay, maybe I might remove that scene and put something different there, you know, perhaps some special weapon or something. And then you wouldn't have maybe that scene that might not make sense. I don't know anybody who likes that part so much. If it went away, I don't think anybody would say anything. We could still have a great film if it was re-edited. So, so there's always potential in something to kind of take the best from something and make it your own. And we kind of are seeing this sort of renaissance of people doing that. Some particular shows people cannot do that to because they're afraid of, you know, getting in trouble for it. But even so, we are seeing sort of like this renaissance of taking material that you may not have been so happy with and then making it into something that's enjoyable. And the Oral Knots, which is another program which kind of reminds me of what you do, where they take music and they kind of just remix scenes of Star Wars to music and just, you know, have a laugh with it, you know, knowing very well that it's a serious story. It's not a comedy, but they can kind of look at certain things and just enjoy. And I think your show does that, Heath. The Cultists seems to be doing things where it's serious, but there are very funny moments. I think it's interesting to look at the funny side of what we enjoy sometimes and have a laugh at that, and, you know, just smile a little bit from some of these things, from experiences that may seem very unusual and uncomfortable, but in actuality can turn out to be something that does give you some sort of pleasure. So, it's kind of interesting to look at it from that point of view. I always see for me, a film that I think that might not be the greatest has potential to be the best.
Yes. Okay, so there's a lot there. So yeah, with
See you
the one
later.
thing with the cultists,
I'll be in touch. I'll be in touch.
Yeah, I wrote that as kind of self-parody because that is a parody, of the Cthulhu mythos and all of that going on. But I had written, I've got a couple of stories that have been published that are very serious horror stories in the Cthulhu mythos, and then I wrote 2 books for an RPG in the Cthulhu mythos that unfortunately have not been published yet, but they were finished and they got written. But I just kept track. When you're doing something serious like that, naturally jokes come up. And so I just kept a notebook of all the different jokes that would come up as we were writing the serious stuff. And I was like, you know what, I should put all this together to make this a parody. So unfortunately, the serious side, well, there are 2 short stories, like I said, that came out that I've got out there, the serious side of it. Unfortunately, other books aren't, but there's the serious side of it. And I hope that people do appreciate the humor in it, because it's done by somebody who was very much involved with the serious side of it before. We're talking about when I was trying to organize the General Geekdom show, one of the things that I was saying is that I didn't want it to be just, okay, what just came out, let's talk about that, because there are a lot of people that could do that. So I was trying to come up with other topics that were outside of that. And I had used the word positive to people who, initially try to pull together the pilot show, trying to do something, positive here and things like that. And there was some pushback to that. People saying, well, I can't be on the show. I don't want to be on the show then. Or maybe I shouldn't be on the show because I don't really feel all that great about some of the stuff that's been happening in sci-fi and fantasy and stuff like that, which I completely agree with. Like I said, some of that, I completely understand. And I may even agree with some of the critiques or a lot of them or whatever. But then I realized that maybe I didn't need to be using the word positive, that I switched to using the word constructive. I want it to be a constructive show. Because if you don't like something, if we're talking about something that you don't like, well, then please say you don't like it. I mean, that's not what I meant by, we should just be positive. But for me, it seemed like being constructive was what I was trying to get at being.
Yeah, I think that's also obviously excellent advice. And, to add to that, on my show, let's say my Sunday brunch show, as I said, we do encourage people to, give us your views, whether they're different from ours or the same. So, we do get people who say, no, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. And we just go with it. We're saying, yeah, I understand, and sometimes they give reasons, and the reasons oftentimes are very legitimate ones. So certainly we're just listening to other people's opinions and learning from it and, taking what we can from it, already knowing that we're not going to agree with them, but we can still have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I remember when you're listening to somebody who I was like on YouTube and was talking about some show who did not like it. And you're talking about one of these, getting the hate-filled emotions out of it. I was like, I'll turn on this and I can clean the house, something like that. But just because they're on that kind of rant doesn't mean you have to listen. Because eventually I was like, oh my God, all right. The person does not like this TV show or whatever it was. I forget what it was. I was like, okay, off, something else. Let's see that level, like there was no reason to continue listening to it at that point. But other people do. But obviously other people do. I mean, there is obviously a lot of people have tremendous amount of success with that. So on the other hand, you can't discount it from the success on YouTube standpoint of things.
Well, yes. And funny enough, I do end up I have a few shows that I managed to step onto and have been invited to, like, on a normal basis. And, oftentimes I'm the only person with, let's say, my point of view or with that sentiment of a particular IP or show. And I just, express my feelings, and, they've been very gracious and open about it. But I have seen where, they have a countering view and they are very upset. And, I just accept what they have to say, and just they accept what I have to say in turn. So it is possible to have discord that it's a positive discord, if you will. So I don't know if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I think so. I think I think I've said that I think there are two parts to this. One is human nature, that we tend to talk about things that we don't like, and then the other one's probably algorithmic. So I don't know. We can't fight human nature. If it's human nature to talk about mostly the things that we don't like, I mean, we're not going to change that overnight or anything like that. But I think it's at least important to be cognizant of that. And I think there's a peril in being overly critical. And I've tried to catch myself on that, because we could come up with a show or a movie or something like that where my overall opinion would be, okay, I liked it, and I liked this about it, and I liked this about it, and I liked this about it. And then I had the following couple of nitpicks, but I really didn't like that. Like, the latest Batman movie, for instance, overall, I would say I liked it. But like a nitpick would be, I don't know what kind of hat they had on Catwoman. That should never have, the hat, she was far too attractive to have that hat on. So there's the nitpick on, on that and stuff like that. But then, if I sat here and talked about it, or had, I might keep going down on, I would say that I liked it. There's my nitpick on the hat. I do think that they messed up toward the end, and they didn't go in the right direction at the end. So that's like my overall. But if I were to sit here and talk about it, if we were to sit here and talk about that movie for 30 minutes, we might end up doing nothing but talking about what they did wrong. And then it would sound like, what, did you hate that movie? Oh, no. Overall, I like that movie. Right?
Yeah, that is something to think about. I think that for a film of that scale and what the director, just in general was trying to go for, I almost consider that film an art film, from looking at it. And I think that any sort of deficiencies, I always give them some artistic license for things like that. It's very specifically chosen for a reason. I don't know why, but that mask was done that way on purpose. And I don't know if I would have chosen that mask. I probably would have had something that had, more design or something on it, but that was specifically done for that character. I think that I hope we see that character with Batman again. I hope she comes back. But even so, even if another film isn't made that looks like this, I enjoyed that one a lot because it felt very artsy to me. And I think that there's so many ways you can, express or take a look at Batman. And, if they do 100 versions of Batman and they're all good, I'm fine with it. I like different things. So it was very dark too. If you don't like dark, maybe a lot of people wouldn't like that kind of feeling, but he's wearing a black suit. So by nature, I just kind of feel like he has a broodiness about him, even though he has, all the riches in the world, so to speak. So, and it looked like New York to me. And I remember going out, like I kind of joked around and said, oh, this is like a typical night in New York City. It's rainy, it's kind of cold, the streets are, you go to these clubs that they're okay. They're not the best clubs in the world, but you go, it felt very much like New York to me. So there was that. So I had it felt like I have sentimental value towards that film because it looked like New York so much to me, especially the scene where they left the penguin sort of like off on the dock somewhere. I'm like, that's Pier 15, it's so anyway, I feel like I'm digressing, but yeah, I think that it's true that toxic fandom, I've heard people say there's toxicity, and a lot of channels and people's opinions are focused on that. But I'm trying to counter it with positivity, Heath.
That's what I'm trying to do too. That's why I figured that we were the perfect person to discuss this with, because I think there needs to be some type of counter to that. And I understand that it has its audience. I understand why it is done, especially from a business perspective on YouTube and what is required to get views and things like that. So on one level, I'm not critical of it because I understand why it exists and why it's being done. But I also think that we need a self-awareness when we are self-aware, to counter that in other spaces, which is what my thinking here is. And I think that we have a peril in being overly critical, that we should at least realize that maybe there is such thing as being overly critical. Because like with the Batman, if you and I were, the opinion is that we both like it, excuse me, there are a lot of other worse movies out there. So I don't want to, like dissect that one and be overly critical if the opinion is, oh yeah, it was good, we liked it, watch that one. Right?
Yes, and the other thing to think about is that, and I know Shadow Paul has been on your channel
Yes.
once or twice. Something that he had mentioned in one of his videos on his channel is that in overall our community who specifically like this IP, meaning not normies, but people who are more focused or more into the fandom than a normie, we tend to be very analytical people. So it's our nature to do this, and that it may just be something inherent in us to look at these details with a fine-tooth comb and figure out, you know, does this make sense? You know, does this support this? It's not our fault. I mean, after all, you run a company, as you mentioned, that has toys, but also games, and games are a form of strategy, Heath. And therefore, in order to excel in a strategic game, you have to be analytical. So inherently in your nature, or let's say anybody who likes to play those games, which all of us do, let's just be honest, all of us who are watching this love games.
Our thing.
We're going to do things like that. And but I think, and I'm not going to say that this isn't true for everybody, my immediate response to something I don't like is, how could I make it better? So I don't know whether that's necessary for everybody to be the fix it person, you know, like we can fix it in that regard. It's more of a, well, one option could be this, or, you know, how different would it have been if they'd gone in that direction? But it is something to think about, that when you have a group of people who,
I don't know how well these elves are working right here. So I don't know how well you can see them right here. I don't think at the moment, I'm not too thrilled with them, but they'll probably work. Like I said, the goal here is just to do tabletop quality miniatures using the slap shot method and the speed paints. So I don't know. At the moment, these to me are looking kind of questionable, but we will see how they turn out.
already analytical in nature, who love analytical games, who love to think about warp drives and, you know, things of this nature. It's, you know, we're going to look at very detailed information. And I think that the creators of these IPs are aware of that. And it is a huge responsibility and not an easy thing to accomplish. So when they get it right, you know, it means that there must have been just so many man hours put into making everything right, you know, that it's astounding, you know, almost unfathomable. For example, and I don't know how you feel about House of the Dragon, but, you know,
I'm pro House of the Dragon.
I love it. And I was going to say that I haven't seen this level of production design and costume design reach this level of perfection in a while. And
I said something very similar about the attention to detail. I think it's incredible.
And, you know, I'm sure you as well as I've seen, you know, sort of, they do these behind the scenes, the making of, you know, Game of Thrones, which has been out, you know, ended, I guess, in 2019. But since that time, they've had a number of different shows where they show you everybody. And then you realize that, gee, wow, it's thousands of people who worked on this. Thousands. You know, you start to realize the magnitude of what the endeavor they're trying to achieve. And it does take that much work and very little sleep, you know, long hours. And even then they might have to go back and start over. The notion of that level of dedication to getting something just right is incredibly demanding. And there's not a lot of people who can necessarily reach that level. And when they do, it is something very special. And we notice it. We notice those things. We think to ourselves, wow, that's amazing. And because it is.
Here's a point that Paul Shadow brought up, and I think is a very interesting when we're talking about the YouTube sphere. And I remember I did a series of response videos to some of his videos before I actually had talked to him live. This is old school YouTube, where I was just like, he did a video and then I just responded to it. You know, that's how you did things, you know, 10 years ago on YouTube or something like that. But so I don't remember exactly the genesis of this idea, but I remember it being within those videos. But I know it's something he's been talking about lately on streams as well, is the idea that the entertainment today, and I think this is a very important thing to realize, because I think it could definitely be true, that the entertainment today is the YouTube conversation. That in some cases, watching the show is like your ticket to buying into the entertainment. I don't really subscribe to the to the hate watching things. If I end up not watching something, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to hate. But some people do, or even like, okay, I got to watch this show whether I like it or whether I don't, because the YouTube commentary on this is going to be bananas, for hours and hours and hours and hours, and over the next week. And if I don't watch it, I haven't in effect bought my ticket to the hours and hours and hours of entertainment that the commentators on YouTube is going to provide. And I think, like I said, I think that's true in many respects, that the entertainment has become the YouTube commentary.
Yes, and I am familiar with the video you're talking about that Paul said about the importance of that commentary, and like, what is the purpose of the video? Is that interaction with the community? And yes, there is some truth to that. I think that, first of all, I think that Paul's analysis of what's going on is really important, because we've been trying to quantify what it means as we've kind of moved away from the model. And I kind of got this from the Ankler too. We moved away from the model of what we used to do, which was to buy music, to buy tickets to the movies, and things like that, where now our entire way of kind of experiencing things now is in the streaming, this streaming way of doing it. And it's changed, the parameters of like, well, where does it count and how do we know?
Thank you. Thank you, Retro Nerd Girl. I'm glad they're looking good. James Bacon says that's 100% true. We've literally canceled all of our TV subscription services because I can watch YouTube on my 4K TV. It's free and it's interactive. Let's see, am I subscribed to a streaming service right now? I'm not sure. They might have all been canceled. I think they might all be canceled right now. But for sure, to me, some of the most valuable entertainment that I buy on a monthly basis is the whatever few dollars to get YouTube Premium or Prime or whatever they call it, to not have advertisements on YouTube, because I watch a lot of YouTube. So not having advertisements on YouTube, it's worth those $7 or $8, like hugely, because that's by far what I watch now. Because I've given up. I got rid of Disney Plus. I haven't been watching Star Wars. I had Netflix for some time, but then got rid of it. I mean, if there's something that I really want to watch, then I guess I would get it. I think what I typically do is rent it, if there's some kind of show or something that I want to watch. But by far, my best spent entertainment dollars is on YouTube. However, I don't watch any endless hours of critique on any particular YouTube show. I got exhausted by that. I was into that, and I was like, all right, let's see what's going on with all this kind of superior stuff when I was watching rumors about He-Man Revelations and then the critique of it. But man, I remember specifically talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. And I stopped watching the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Like a couple of episodes in, 3 episodes in, something like that, I just stopped watching. I was like, all right, this is not interesting to me. I'm going to turn this off. So I just stopped watching it. But man, my YouTube feed was filled with people who are more than happy to spend hours and hours and hours and hours talking about how much they did not like every single episode of that show. Not even the whole season, like a critique of the whole season. I'm talking about like, hey, we've got this one episode that was released. But for some people, that's their entertainment. That, hey, wait a minute. This episode was dropped. We don't like it. I'm going to go watch 16 hours of critique about how much I don't like it. Some people do that. A lot of people do that. Apparently, a lot of people do that. But I was like, this is not for me. So I just stopped watching it. And then, man, I was not going to watch just hours and hours and hours of commentary on it. Retro Nerd Girl says, me too. Tommy Krat says, also, there's a lot of good shows and movies on there, all free. James Bacon says, I used to have premium. It's ridiculous how many ads there are. And I swear they have been many more ads since premium ran out. Well, it could be. If you click, as someone who has put YouTube ads on videos before, if you click the button to just let YouTube, there is a button that says, let YouTube figure out where to put ads on this. If you click that button, which is why I never click that button on my videos, because if you click that button and just want to let YouTube figure out where to put ads on a video, man, it stuffs that video so full of ads that it's unwatchable. Like every 120 seconds, like 2 minutes or something like that, man, you're getting a new ad. Like, oh my God. It would be very helpful to me to be able to click that button on a YouTube video and say, yes, just please figure out where to put the ads instead of my having to do it manually. Except for if I let YouTube do it, it makes it an unwatchable and unbearable video because it's so stuffed full of ads. So I can't use that button because I'm like, nobody would watch that if I stuffed it full of ads. So I have to manually just put in like one ad or something like that. Because yeah, YouTube will just freaking stuff things with ads. Absolutely. James Bacon says you get the whole plot of the show plus hours and hours and hours and hours of reaction content. Exactly. In which, that just may be the way that things are now. Or maybe there will be an algorithm change and then it won't be. Who knows? But it certainly has been for a long time.
Whether it was successful or not, and everything hasn't been truly been defined. And one day someone will come up with some crazy, formula that'll show exactly why we were deficient and not able to, because there was some special measurement that was being taken, but we were unaware of it. So, but the point being, trying to quantify the idea of, what is the purpose of making these YouTube videos? And if anything, we don't have message boards anymore. What, Reddit, I guess some of these things, but I think a lot of people like to see another person, another human being, which is something that, feels good to see another person.
And the live interaction. I mean, when the show is over, 30 seconds later, the live stream is on a bunch of different channels. And then there are people there who are definitely there. Like I said, the entertainment, I got to watch the show, but because there's going to be a lot of fun in the live interaction with the chats, the super chats and the panel talking and stuff like that. So I don't, I understand why that is. I mean, but I don't want to understate it actually. That's a huge part of people's entertainment about this, is that going and watching those shows. And being actually more than watching it and being involved in the chats and by super chat or just normal chat or whatever, being there live is an important part of it, which is actually goes right into the kind of the next topic, talking about something else that we can't actually change, but is something that is happening now, is, an increasing culture of now. I had said something about the fixation on now. When something's released, you'd better watch it. And some people in my comments, and I think it was a very valid point, was saying that, well, that's just how we've always been. If you don't watch something when it comes out, then you're going to be behind. And I think that's absolutely true, that human beings, we are now focused. We're focused on what's going on now. So there is something natural about that, except for technology has accelerated when is now, because it may be even not too long ago that if the show came on at 8:00 at night or something, then you could watch it and you had time to digest it and think about it. And then your time to talk about it would be at noon the next day at work with people. So that's quite a time to digest it and think about it. Or, if it's streaming, maybe, you can watch it a bit later or something like that and still converse with your coworkers or whatever. But now, technology is compressed now to almost instantaneous. I mean, like, isn't Rings of Power released at midnight or something like that in some time zone? So if you don't stay up till midnight, like midnight, and then if it's an hour show at 1:00 and 30 seconds, the live streams are going to be on. That's when people are doing things, talking about things, and heaven forbid you have to go to work the next morning and wake up at 6:00, because when you get your coffee in the morning, it's already over. Like, all the spoilers are out there. Like, I mean, you've already missed it. And is that too much now?
Yeah, it is something to think about. There's a lot of instant gratification for us now, so let's say going forward, if you can afford it, but or at least it seems like there's a lot of instant gratification out there. And there's one show that people were talking about, I think it was called The Sandman, and they released all the episodes at once. And that might have been a show that I would have preferred to have seen released one episode a week, because of the complexity of the program itself. And then at some point, I had mentioned that I became confused because there were segments where there was a dream state and then an awake state, and I couldn't tell the difference between the two. And I know it's because I watched, like 4 or 5 episodes right in a row. So I didn't have enough time to kind of absorb what was going on in the previous episode, especially when these sort of machinations between, the dream state and the awake state were happening. So sometimes having everything right now isn't always ideal. And yes, I have watched episodes at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I miss my sleep.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate the House of the Dragon is doing a weekly release. So I'm there when House of the Dragon's coming out. I've just wait. All right, Sunday it's at 8 my time. I'm going to watch. Not necessarily because people are are spoiling and stuff like that. I found a channel that was talking about that does a stream after it. But I'm enjoying it, so I'm going to watch it when it comes out because I don't watch anything else like that. So I'll just set that time aside. But I think it's good. That does extend the now over 8 or 10 weeks, however many episodes it's going to be. I'm glad that it didn't just all drop someday and then, boy, you got to rush in and watch it, and then everybody's be live streaming about it all the next day, and then the day after it'll be over. What's the next show that's coming out?
Certainly, I agree with you. One thing I did want to mention is that I guess it shouldn't really matter, because in the days when network television, where you would have 4 or 5 channels competing at the same time, there was an 8 o'clock slot, a 9 o'clock slot, a 10 o'clock slot, for television programming, maybe even a 7 p.m. slot of programming, and they would all have to compete at the same time. It was a big deal. So now we have, House of the Dragon at the same time as this other show called, which I kept calling Rings of Fire. It's actually Rings of Power. I don't know why I kept calling it Rings of Fire. But they're on, I guess, essentially competing, or it feels as if they are competing at the same time. And I kind of thought that this was very interesting and maybe a little silly in a sense, because they're just such different shows. One is based on, I guess you would consider it a piece of classical British literature, based on British myths and lore, Tolkien's magnus opus, pretty much something that, if you could write something like that, you're spectacular, right? So, he creates his own languages. There's so much to boast about it, so many interesting things in it. So there's that. And then you have sort of like the Game of Thrones, also an incredible book, but such a different tone, Like, they really are both fantasy, but certainly a different flavor. And, I think that a person could love both of them equally, but certainly, Game of Thrones with the violence and sex, let's say, it's got a different feeling to it. I mean, I don't think you can really compare the two. And, we've been seeing sort of like, which one do you like better? And I think they're just not really even comparable, because it's just a different feeling to both. And I understand what, House of Rings, or I'm sorry.
Now you've confused both of them.
The power, the ring one is trying to go for. I know what they're trying to go for, and they've put a lot of time in that production and energy. And, I can congratulate the crew for going for a specific look. And I'd said that it's kind of a deconstructed look, from what we've previously seen for that particular storyline. But what I am going to say is that for me personally, you can't compare the two. I don't think it's fair to compare the two of them. What do you think, Heath? Do you think it's fair to compare like a Game of Thrones style show to a Tolkien, let's say, loosely based show?
Well, I would compare them on the subject that when I actually, Lord of the Rings and Middle Earth is my favorite fantasy world. So I was really hoping that the Rings of Power was going to do very well.
Yeah.
But I'm a big on the feel of things. And as soon as I was also skeptical of the House of Dragon. I was skeptical about the Rings of Power because I was like, is Amazon going to be able to do it well? I was skeptical about the Rings of Power just because I, like many people, had been down on Song of Ice and Fire and that whole world after the last couple of seasons of the show. So I hadn't actually been paying attention. So I was skeptical of it coming out, but I decided to give both of them a chance. And to me, like being so big on the feel, like as soon as the House of the Dragon started, boom, the feel of being back in Westeros and being back in that world, I was just like immediately drawn in. I was going to. James says, when an episode airs, there's now a week's worth of reaction content to carry you on to the next week. I think it would benefit the showrunners greatly if they kept this in mind. Well, I do too. Now, there's only so much reaction content that I can possibly watch, but there's some people just stream on Tuesdays or Thursdays or Wednesdays or whatever, and so you've got all of that. This green color is just beautiful. I had a much lighter color green over here because I was kind of inspired by like the Green Man over here, but that green, the original green you can see up there, just was not cutting it. But man, this orc skin green, this is looking fantastic. But so some people just stream on Wednesdays or just stream on their Friday shows or something like that. So you do have the whole week cycle, but like for me personally, that's what I was saying. There's only so much of that I can watch. Like I can't watch 16 hours worth of commentary, whether I like the show or I don't like the show, based on every episode, which basically end up saying the same things over and over again. But some people do. I mean, obviously, a lot of people do. A lot of people will watch. It. I was watching one of the YouTube commentators say, "Hey, are you afraid? Are you not starting your YouTube commentary channel because you see that everyone else has already made reaction videos and commentary videos on a show or something that you want to make commentary on?" He said, "Don't worry about that. It doesn't matter if 1,000 people have already made commentary on that episode. There's still room for you. People still want to hear it. Get in and make the commentary." And so that person was like, yeah, just like, Lord, that he clearly, at least in that context, had the opinion that there is an unlimited appetite for commentary and review of everything that goes out. And that may be true. It's not true for me. Like I said, eventually I'm like, oh my God, okay, whether I liked it, whether I didn't like it, by the time we're a couple of hours into commentary, all right, that's enough. I gotta go do something else. True, but that will also let some just let all the EPs build up a minute. Some people will do that. Some people will do that. Although, like for me, it did get me. Like, for instance, I originally was very interested in watching the Book of Boba Fett. When I saw like the teaser trailer on The Mandalorian for the Book of Boba Fett, I was very interested in seeing it. But then when it was actually coming out, there was a bunch of other things that I was doing. And so I was like, oh my God, I really don't have time to watch a TV show right now. I guess I'll watch it later. But my YouTube feed was full of people who were talking about, well, the Book of Boba Fett. And so I was like, all right, I'm not going to watch these things because I just kind of want to watch this show eventually from the beginning to end. But then I was seeing in the headlines of all the different YouTube commentary, this roller coaster of opinions about, oh my God, this is terrible. Oh, this is great. No, wait, it's terrible again. No, it's great. Okay, that was fantastic. No, here we are to terrible again. And I was like, oh my God. Okay, I guess I just have to watch this. If I want to be part of this, I guess I'm going to have to watch this right now. And before the finale premieres, I'm gonna have to binge this. So as I was sitting here working one day here in the office, I've got a big screen TV up here in the office. I was like, I guess I'm just gonna have to subscribe. Probably had to subscribe to Disney Plus and just binge the Book of Boba Fett so that when this finale comes out, I can see what's going on. So, I mean, I watched it, which I guess is what they wanted. Tommy Kratt says, I did try the one a week on one series, but the ones with cliffhangers, which are the norm now, make it look a lot harder to wait. I don't watch a whole lot of TV shows, but like I really enjoyed, for instance, the last one that I watched weekly was the House of the Dragon, and I loved the House of the Dragon. I thought it was great. And I did really enjoy the weekly release, like setting aside that Sunday night, because I'm always working. I'm always doing something. You guys know I'm always doing something. But I was like, at that time, I was like, all right, Sunday for that hour, I'm gonna go get some, cook some dinner here. I'm gonna sit up here. I'm gonna turn on the TV, and so I did enjoy it. James says, I think it's fair to compare any show with any other show. I do too. I should have. Today, I would say, yeah, I can directly compare the Rings of Power with the House of the Dragon on a lot of levels. And in my personal opinion, the House of the Dragon just beat the Rings of Power's pants off, like in a major way. in my opinion, you don't have to have that opinion, but in my opinion, yeah, I was very skeptical about both of them. I wasn't going to watch either one. I was very skeptical about both of them, but I decided, you know what? Why be like that? Why not give them both a chance? So I did give them both a chance. I gave them both a chance. And I couldn't even finish maybe I finished the first episode of Rings of Power. Maybe. I guess I did. I tried watching the Rings of Power several times, but maybe I watched one episode. But man, I was so glad I gave both of them a chance, because the House of the Dragon, just from the very beginning, floored me. I love the House of the Dragon. So that reinvigorated some of, we're talking about corporate geekdom and how sometimes it does provide you with great stuff, because I have some great examples of things that it has done well. Well, one of the things that's done well recently, in my opinion, is the House of the Dragon. I love the House of the Dragon. Tomocrat says, I'm a mass comm major and I can so see the script outlines. Drives me nuts. Tomocrat says, I used to be a script reader and I can see them too, but I like being able to watch a show that way. Tomocrat says, trained in editing, so I see the layout and settings too. Interesting. James Bacon says, join the Discord. Oh, I should put the Discord link if anybody is here who is not on the Discord. Put the Ravenkeep Discord server link in here. Ravenkeep Discord. Now in the chat. Retro Nerd Girl says, I love watching commentary, even the commentary I disagree with. My benefit is learning how to articulate my own reviews better. The super vile stuff I skip. Yeah, I hear you. My commentary is, my critique is the quantity. That there is a limit to the amount of commentary I can watch. Whether I hate it or whether I love it, there's a limit to the amount, but apparently for a lot of people, there's not. Retro Nerd Girl says, House of the Dragon was excellent. I can't wait till it returns. I know. I'm so excited about that, too. I'm excited about that. James Bacon says, I've decided I don't need any more LOTR. We have the books and some excellent films, even the Hobbit trilogy, and I just don't need it. I'm, again, talking about skeptical of corporate geekdom. I haven't gone deep into the idea there's going to be new Lord of the Rings movies, but talk about being skeptical of something. James says it'll only make it worse. Retro Nerd Girl says, I enjoy watch the supplemental content. Speaking of the lore behind most of these shows, it's like being in school that I want to attend. Toadstool Hollow says, I've only watched the commentary on the Rings of Power and satisfied at that. James Bacon says, Retro Nerd Girl got some fire opinions and a wonderfully open mind. Yeah, by the way, what we should do here, you should definitely subscribe to Retro Nerd Girl's channel as well. I'm going to put the link to her channel in the comments. So if you are not subscribed to Retro Nerd Girl, you should definitely do that. Retro Nerd Girl. That link is now in the commentary. Subscribe to Retro Nerd Girl as well. Subscribe to Positive Fandom with and also to Retro Nerd Girl. Turned on and work, and I couldn't. Like, as soon as it started, like I'm talking about within seconds, I was like, what? And so it captured me.
Yeah.
Which the Rings of Power did not, like, give me the feel of being in Middle Earth or back in Tolkien's world or back in Middle Earth from the Lord of the Rings trilogy or stuff like that. So in that way, I would compare them, and I would say one of them succeeded in giving me the right feel and being back, and the other one didn't. But when you're talking about genre, obviously they are focused, like who they're targeting as an audience is different. And one of the things that I've seen said on Facebook that, well, and probably other places, but I've seen people talk about it on Facebook, on my Facebook feed, was that, well, if you are looking for something to show to the whole family that is fantasy oriented, okay, well, it's not going to be House of the Dragon. And I wish that Rings of Power were much better in all the many different ways people talk about. But if I had a family and they were looking for fantasy content because they enjoyed that and were looking for something, well, then I see people say, so we watch Rings of Power, because that is a hole that is lacking. So they were trying to fill that hole. They were trying to fill that kind of family hole that for fantasy, which I think is very important to do. Unfortunately, it seems like they didn't do. Come to think of it, maybe fill the family hole. It's not. It's not the way I should have phrased that. There's probably a better way to phrase that. Hey, Optimus Prime. Good to see you. To me, everything else as well as it should have been done. But yeah, I mean, I think that we need that. And at least they're delivering that. That's not necessarily, I think, not necessarily something positive to say about that particular instance of that show, the way it was instantiated. But it's saying something about a hole in what we've got as far as our entertainment that it is at least filling.
Yes, certainly. It certainly is. And, I think about that sometimes too, in regards to these shows. They're not easy to create and adapt. And, it really is a labor of love. I think that the costumes for House of the Dragon come from a costume design house in, it's either Portugal or Spain, I think. And they've been doing the costumes for a very long time. So these are very, very experienced costume designers, maybe the best in the world. And, you're able to achieve that level of perfection. And of course, the 150 people who worked on the costumes from, I think it's maybe 120. It was quite a large crew. And of course it shows, right? For House of the Dragon, the effort that they put into that. Even there was one or two dresses that I remember seeing, and even some of the armor that I was blown away by. But I think that it's very interesting to see how the vision of what they're trying to push forward, because for me, I can't deny the idea that this deconstructed version of let's say, Lord of the Rings was put forward, and you can kind of see it with the Harfoots. Yeah,
the Harfoots, I think. Yeah.
They have a deconstructed look, their clothes are kind of messy, and, their makeup's messy, and that look that they have. And I said, it's kind of the opposite of what we saw in some of the other depictions of Tolkien's work. But, this is very specific look they went for, and they worked really hard to make it look like that. So I can give them that for sure. But it was not what I cared for, and not what I envisioned for Tolkien's work.
Yeah, I really wanted them both to be great, but I have really been enjoying the House of the Dragon, and that's a very pleasant surprise to me, because like I said, I had checked out on that world, and they got me back. So they
pulled back in, Heath.
Yeah, it's good to be back into something. It is. It's good to be back in something and enjoying it, and be like, oh, well, gee, this is actually done well. Okay, well, I think that hit largely all of my notes on all the things that is happening that we ultimately that we should be aware of, that we ultimately can't change. Right? We can just talk about them, but I think that. But what about your personal interest and discussion on romance and sex?
Yes. So my personal interest in sex and sexuality in science fiction, horror, and fantasy is, I feel, very important, because it progresses a story in a way that other focuses don't. So it doesn't have to be in every story, but I think relationships matter in these stories. I think that intimate relationships matter even more. And perhaps we see that no more apparent than in House of the Dragon are these intimate relationships that it's, you know, having this insider's view of these intimate relationships in these families that are kind of controlling things, and, you know, the repercussions of indulgences or a lack of indulgence. And, you know, one of the last episodes, there was a scene where poor Damon takes his niece to, you know, out on the town. You want to call it that. You know, she put the clothes on and disguised herself, and he wanted everyone to see that she was there. Eventually, from his actions, as I've discussed with another person in the community who I do talk to about these things, his name is Darth Plato. And one thing that I thought was very interesting was that a lot of things could have happened to her when she was out. You know, they could have gone in a lot of different directions with her being in the street by herself. She's an attractive young girl, you know, very young, probably could not fight off someone. You know, I think even a boy of her age could pretty much control her and do something bad. A lot of bad things could have happened to her. But what happened was she goes back to the castle. And of course, you know, she picked Cole, who's this very attractive soldier who's her champion, and pretty much seduces him. And, you know, honestly, I thought to myself, they could have done a lot of things here. Instead, you know, first of all, I'm glad that nothing really happened between her and her uncle. So I can just put that out there. But she still had all that pent up energy. And this is like from a female gaze of, you know, she's still very aroused. There's no other way to say it. And here's this very attractive man standing outside of your door, for heaven's sake. Oh my goodness, you know.
He's right there for you. Right?
Thank you for doing this, House of the Dragon. But honestly, these relationships between bodyguards and the people they guard do happen a lot. You know, we see them in the news between stars and even royals who have had, you know, relationships with their bodyguards. This does actually happen a lot. Because
wasn't that a Kevin Costner movie called The Bodyguard?
Well, yes, but
I don't think I ever saw it.
I think Princess Stephanie did it, the House of Grimaldi and Monaco, and I think there were a few other royals who did this. There are some celebrities who have had relationships with their bodyguards. So it does happen, and it happens frequently and more than we like to say. And I do think that it was very bold of them to have this girl to seduce him in this way, because, you know, in actuality, they both were thinking about this for a long time. But it was very nice to see a realistic situation. She would have gone there. She would have tried to seduce him. It's his decision to say yes or no. All the cards were in his favor. She can't order him to bed. You know, he would have stayed out in the hallway if he wanted to, you know, and that would have been fine. But he wanted to be with her as much as she wanted to be with him. And that's the type of stuff that I like to see in a show, when someone is with someone else and that's what they.
I was reading somebody in the comments when I clipped that particular section of the commentary who was vehemently disagreeing with that, and that the bodyguard did not have a choice in that. I thought it was an interesting perspective on it. So some people may disagree with that, but she's not the authority, the ultimate authority there.
Really want. And, you know, was the timing right? I have no idea. But, you know, if she hadn't done it then, she would have ended off on this marriage, right? She's already betrothed to someone else now, on a boat heading somewhere, God knows where she's heading off to. But the point is that there we saw sexuality used, and it was meant to hurt the character going to this place. And she had to do a lot of machinations, but she thwarted this, but it accelerated her, you know, trip and getting her out of the way. Damon is still plotting to get what he wants. So it is something to think about. And that's how sex, you know, let's say most recently used in a show where it certainly did accelerate the plot, didn't it?
Yes. So that's where everybody talks about, is it actually driving the plot, or is it not? And in this case, it definitely was.
Yeah, and I think that some of the appeal of Game of Thrones, so it's somewhat more sexual than other shows, even with its implications. There's sexual implications and situations in it, more than a lot of other fantasy, shows that we see. So I have to say it, because of this, it is one of my favorites because it's so beautifully done. And I think they get it just right each and every time. It's the writing as well. The original work by Martin is just so brilliant.
Yeah, and that was another thing actually that House of the Dragon got from me that Rings of Power did not, is that immediately after seeing the first, I don't think I saw the first episode when it came out. I watched the first two like the week later or something like that. I immediately I said, oh, should I have been watching or reading Fire and Blood? So I went back and I ordered that. So that show got an auxiliary purchase out of me. Oh, I should have bought that book. Here we go, which is not something that Rings of Power does. But I think should be the goal. I mean, you would think of all these different things. You watch the TV show and then think, oh, should I have this book? Should I have some other type of thing? Are you familiar with role-playing games?
I am familiar with role-playing games.
Because I just thought about this. We were talking about sex and moving the plot forward and things. And I've never played this game, but I have read it. Apocalypse World. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I haven't.
I only thought of it because it's the only game I know of where every character explicitly has a sex move.
Well, okay.
So it integrates sex into the game by saying what happens when a character of your type has sex with a character of another type. And how does that change the relationship between the characters, or what happens? So it's not about describing something necessarily that's happening in the bedroom. You can, as they say, you can do whatever you want at your table, but you could fade to black, but so it's a way of integrating that into the story. Even if you're going to fade to black, okay, but this happened. Now, what are the consequences between the two characters?
Yeah, this is a good point. And I do like that idea because it
Retro Nerd Girl says, I love the fact that active passion in the House of the Dragon has significant consequences that influences the characters. I love it. I will go beyond that with just sex. When Game of Thrones, the TV show, I mean, we're talking about sex and sexuality here, but I'm just talking about in general with their actions. When the Game of Thrones TV show was at its best, and then also, which has come over to House of the Dragon, significant actions have significant consequences, whether it's sexual or violent, sexual actions, violent actions, or other major political actions. They had consequences. And you can definitely, in my opinion, certainly tell in the as the Game of Thrones TV show declined in its later seasons, that things would happen and then they wouldn't have consequences. Something would happen, but then there would be no consequence of that. Everything would be just back to the way that it was after that happened. And so I completely agree with you here that in all things, whether it's the act of sexuality, act of violence, political act, whatever it is, that it's the consequences that you're looking for. And when they're not there, it is not as the storytelling is not as good.
It also reinforces the influence that, that happens. And of course, after the two characters have this exchange, they're not the same anymore. Things are not the same between the two of them, and they themselves are changed from the experience. The other thing I want to mention to you, or at least that I was enjoying, that does have to do with sexuality, is the level of masculinity, because I embrace masculinity. I think everybody should embrace masculinity, and we're seeing a lot of that in the House of the Dragon. So I love that masculine energy that we get in a show like this, that drive, and it is definitely male orientated. And I think that that's very important, especially in a show like House of the Dragon, or even in some other shows, that they're just kind of appreciating the masculine presence in shows. Men are great in shows. So I really do enjoy seeing that as well in House of the Dragon.
Yeah, I agree. I've been enjoying it. The first thing was that I was back there in that world, and I had enjoyed so much of that world. And so I'm glad that they have
also
honored it.
The only other thing, I'm sorry, Heath, is that I've noticed that the writers for House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones found a place for everybody, no matter who they are and what they look like and what their background was, which is something that I think was very well thought out and also added to the appeal of the show.
Well, with Martin, a variety of all different kinds of people. Well, and his gray characters. I really like the way that Martin creates characters, because he'll take a character who will be the perfect X, whatever it is. Okay, this person is the perfect knight, or the perfect lord, or whatever. But then give them one critical flaw that prevents that from actually manifesting. You would be the perfect whatever, except for you've got this problem.
Right.
And I really like that style of character generation. You know, whether that's Tyrion, you'd be the perfect lord, except for you're a dwarf. Or, you know, Jaime Lannister, you'd be the perfect knight. You're the perfect knight, you know, and perfect lord of this, except for you have no drive to actually accomplish anything. Whereas Cersei has all the drive. She would be the perfect one, except for she's a woman. So she's got all these other things going for her. Or the Knight of Flowers. As far as classic knight, that's the perfect one. Sir Loras Tyrell would be the perfect knight. The only problem is he's gay. So he's got to deal with that, right? You know, so there's always a problem that they have to deal with. And I really like that in all that story, that kind of storytelling. Well, do you want to let everybody know where to find you and what you were doing? And are there projects that you were involved in right now? I know you are trying to get another show off the ground and other channels and things like that. So you do want to let everybody know about that?
Yes, of course. Everybody, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Positive Fandom. I also stream on Twitch and Odyssey as well under Positive Fandom. I do have my 10:30 a.m. Sunday brunch show, as I mentioned, where you can join in on the conversation every Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. And we also promote other creators. I also have a show on the Post-Geek Singularity Network, which is Robert Meyer Burnett's network, called The Ladies of the PGS. And it's essentially myself.
So you can go right from the morning grind on Sundays, right from the morning grind over to, oh no, wait a minute. Is the problem there? We're in different time zones. Are we actually streaming at the same time? Oh, I'll have to think about that. But at any rate, both about the same time on Sundays. James Bacon says, I'm actually not the biggest Martin fan, but Game of Thrones can be extremely persuasive. I would say that I am a George R.R. Martin fan, although I think that as from the book perspective, as in not getting books and what has happened with the story as far as the books go, I really do appreciate what George R.R. Martin, I think, according to my understanding of the text and my reading of the text, has been trying to do with them. But I realize that has been lost on a lot of people. The people I try to talk to are like my brothers and aunts and uncles and things like that, that what George R.R. Martin was trying to do with those books, at least I think has been lost because it has just gone on and on and on and keeps getting larger without actually coming to a conclusion. So I think there are definitely critiques, but there's still a lot of stuff that I really like about George R.R. Yeah, okay, we both stream at the same time.
And other ladies who get on and we talk about different things that have happened in the fandom. It is a masculinity. We embrace masculinity in the show, so it's not quite, it's really nothing to do with women in a sense. We're just women talking who happen to be members of the PGS. So, and we also talk about Star Trek, Star Wars, and everything else in between. And that show usually takes place on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the PGS network. But I also do a show called Toxic Male Appreciation with Lorena Creole on her Twitch channel. It premieres at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then there's a replay of it on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I also do a late night show with Robert Meyer Burnett called Midnight Musings as well on the weekends, usually at midnight, either Friday or Saturday. So that's what I've been up to. And I'm still promoting other people's work regularly, you know, which I do enjoy doing. And I am an entertainment analyst who enjoy science fiction, fantasy, horror, but I do like to focus on sex and sexuality.
What in our final moments here? What is the most toxic male we should be appreciating? What is the first?
Oh wow, wow. You know, right now I would say it's a tie between Matt Smith and the guy who plays Jerry Silva on Cobra Kai. I think his name is what is his name? Griffith is his last name, or Griffin? Ian Griffin. I'm not sure. Silva on Cobra Kai. They just had released their entire season 5 on Cobra Kai, and he plays something Silva. Let's see.
But interesting to me. So you brought up actors rather than like fictional characters. So that's even
I'm
better.
sorry.
We've got
no. I can bring a fictional character.
Oh no, I think that's interesting. It's better that you actually brought up actual people who we should be appreciating and not just fictional representations. That's fantastic. So Matt Smith.
I think there's a lot of focus on those two characters because they are in shows where I guess they sort of play the villain, if you will. And you may not know this, the villain is usually my favorite character. Homelander is my favorite character in The Boys. I love his craziness. I think that he might be considered a very toxic male, Heath, if you look at it from that point of view, because of his views. But I love when he had said, I'm not going to put up with everybody telling me that I can't do this or can't do this. I'm going to do what I want. And I just clapped because it was just fun to kind of see him cut loose and be himself. Another character I would say might be Peacemaker, because no one seems to want to see him win on his show. You know, he tries so hard to be positive. He's beautiful looking on the outside. He's got a good personality, but he doesn't get a lot of support in the Peacemaker genre. Like what we would traditionally see superheroes get a lot of support and a lot of fans. He doesn't seem to get that. So I would consider him maybe toxic because he's written in a way that you're not supposed to cheer for him because he's the underdog, but you always want him to come out on top.
All right. Well, we should definitely do this again. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think that hopefully we have tried to move the conversation on some what I think are rather important topics about, how we're doing things in the sort of the entertainment commentary area here on YouTube forward, that I think at least are important to think about, because I always think that, well, we can go in whatever direction people go, but we should at least be aware of what direction we're going and be making conscious decisions and thinking about it rather than just, barreling off in whatever direction that we're going. So hopefully, this kind of conversation will gain some additional traction, I hope, over the next weeks and months. But thank you so much for being here. Everybody, check her out.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right. So that is our conversation with her. I thought it was a good one. We should have her back. We've got new people to invite. Sometimes I get behind. There's so many things to do, and so sometimes trying to schedule guests for Tuesday and Thursdays are not what I'm thinking about when I'm trying to do things. And I'm trying to get these things painted up here, but I'm getting close to the end of this, so maybe soon we'll be able to work on having guests here and then also do our board game streaming stuff. Henry Cavill, Retro Nerd Girl, was talking about Henry Cavill. We should be appreciating the toxic masculinity, or just the masculinity of Henry Cavill. Yeah, I've seen something about the 40K show, so hopefully that happens. I mean, if that happened well. I mean, I don't watch. I'm not deep into the lore of 40K. I'm not. I played Warhammer Fantasy Battles. I never got into 40K. I tried. Like I think I've said on this stream before, there are some 40K armies that I would definitely want to paint up if I had the extra time. But hey, painting armies take time, so I don't know that I've done that. I don't know that I will ever have time to do that. But I did try to play 40K, but it didn't hold my interest. Maybe it was something wrong with the way that I played it. But if there was a TV show with Henry Cavill in it, I would definitely try it. And we've also talked about different ways that people get into different fandoms. So if there was a 40K TV show, I would definitely watch it and try to get into 40K through a TV show. So, what else do we need to say? Well, I'm not, these particular elves here, I'm not terribly happy with. They're sort of, to me, they've come out kind of at a minimum level of tabletop quality. Not quite as good as some of the other things that I painted over here in this same set, but I guess they're going to be okay. I got to work with them a little bit more. I did get these doors finished, and I think that the doors look pretty good. The wooden door and the iron door, both kind of overgrown with green. I might come in here and put some gold and stuff on that door. I might, maybe I won't. And then I've got the Sinestra, which I just put some purple on. And I am going to call this. I am going to call this throne done. It had the blue and then it had the brown for a wooden. So I'm just going to leave it a completely wooden throne. So getting closer. After that, I still have some swords elves to do. And I screwed up. I think I really screwed up this weapons rack. So I'm going to have to go back and fix that. James says, Warhammer Fantasy is my true love, but 40K is also great. It's a throne of games. All right, so I will be live again tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Man, I gotta get out of here because 9:30 a.m. Central Time tomorrow. We'll be looking at Dark Sun some more. I had some additional insight, I think, into the situation with Dark Sun, and the word problematic and what it's saying and what it's seeming to imply. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. We'll also do a live stream tomorrow night, probably more Crafter's Corner. Maybe I'll have to come up with what we're going to be talking about tomorrow night, but we'll do more Crafter's Corner tomorrow as I try to continue to get these finished up. I hope you had a great time doing your creative projects. Please do post in the Raven Keep Discord server, in the Creative Corners channel, or if it's miniatures, put it in the miniatures channel because we like to look at that. Retro Nerd Girl says, great paint work tonight and fantastic conversation with horror. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So, yes, more Dark Sun streams tomorrow. I will see everybody later. Let's get work done between now, or some sleep. We'll get sleep or work done. You choose between now and 9:30 in the morning. Bye, everybody. See you later.